I think the thing that you feel when you get to the right word is it feels like you found the answer to a question, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I can feel like sometimes when I've overwritten something that it's because I have not gotten to the perfect word. I have not found the answer to the question that the prose is posing. My name is Gabrielle Zevin. I'm the author of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I am a dictionary reader, a dictionary lover, and I'm excited to talk about the words in my book today.
Thanks for being on Word Choices. It is a fantastic book. I loved it. It's about a 30-year friendship between two characters, Sam and Sadie, who create video games and how they connect and sometimes they don't connect in the real and virtual world. So we're going to dive right in with our first section, if that's all right with you.
That is to say, Sam Mazer at age 21 did not have a build for pushing and shoving, and so as much as possible, he weaved through the crowd feeling somewhat like the doomed amphibian from the video game Frogger. He found himself uttering a series of excuse-me's that he did not mean. A truly magnificent thing about the way the brain was coded, Sam thought, was that it could say excuse me while meaning screw you. Unless they were unreliable or clearly established as lunatics or scoundrels, characters in novels, movies, and games were meant to be taken at face value, the totality of what they did or what they said. But people, the ordinary, the decent, and basically honest, couldn't get through the day without that one indispensable bit of programming that allowed you to say one thing and mean, feel, even do another. Yeah, it's funny to me, the passage is a mission statement for what the whole book is. And really, the book is about language in so many ways, but the language is the language of programmers. You know, the fact that people in life do not always say precisely what they mean. This was a passage that came fairly simply. And, you know, in terms of like lunatics or scoundrels, I was aware in choosing those words that they were old-fashioned. And so I was always thinking that this was a book that was about something very modern to most people, which is it's a book about, you know, computers and technology, but that I always wanted to be pushing you back to something that felt more classic. Those words have a certain, I think, crispness. You know, they evoke maybe something more like Edith Wharton, you know? Something like that. And so that was something I was conscious of wanting to do, that like, though this was going to be about technology, this was going to be just about what it was to be a human as well. Yeah, and the thing with Frogger, I don't know if anybody's described it as about a doomed amphibian. It was a way to like telegraph what I was doing here, which is like, you know, you think that Frogger just like maybe it evokes the 80s or like, you know, but what I really wanted you to was to kind of feel like you were in a different time and place when you were thinking about Frogger, you know, that he is a doomed amphibian, you know, but Sam himself is also a doomed human being in in this section of the book.
We're going to jump ahead a little bit. And this is a dreamlike scene in the imagination of a character as they contemplate their own real life death.
Or you could even say in the mind of a character contemplating their own mortality.
See, this is
you
why.
Could.
Let's go back and say that.
You are flying. Below a checkerboard of country life, a pair of Jersey cows graze in a lavender field, tails swatting at imaginary flies. A woman in a chambray dress rides a bicycle over a stone bridge. She hums the second movement of Beethoven's Emperor Concerto, and as she passes, a man in a Breton cap begins whistling the tune. From a hive you cannot see, the susurrus of bees. In the valley below the bridge, an ink-haired boy feeds a sugar cube to a horse with a wild look in her eyes. A grove of apple trees waits patiently for fall. Unobserved, a graying man watches two teenagers swim in a pond. You can smell the man's longing, stronger than lavender, and you think, humans want so much. I am glad to be a bird. In a field of strawberry plants, waxy berries companionably mingle among white flowers. You have never been one to resist a strawberry, so you descend.
And I believe we have an earlier draft of the same passage, and we would love to hear it just so we can see how it evolved and changed.
So this is a very unique experience that you're getting an author to read an earlier draft.
You're very brave.
We're putting this in a big bracket that it was It was passed over many times after this. Ichi, you are flying. Below a verdant patchwork of summertime hills and the ineluctable valleys that accompany them, a castle, a modest country house, a cluster of village buildings, a stone bridge. Well, the biggest word change that I notice is the shift from a verdant patchwork of summertime hills and the ineluctable valleys that accompany them to a checkerboard of country life. So I think checkerboard is so much more evocative considering that this is a novel about games, and so I think sometimes if you think about it, you hunt all around with words. Like there's a lot of like good words in that section, but if you can come to just one word that's like the perfect word, which is a checkerboard, it's so much more evocative than verdant, summertime, ineluctable. The thing that I've learned over the years as a novelist is that the greatest gift you can give your work is to pass over it and to not ignore that which isn't quite right yet. Another thing I noticed is I had a chapter numbering system that was really complicated. And so Ichi is Japanese for one. And obviously Ichigo is a game that factors in the book in a big way. So that was a thing that I did that I decided wasn't like quite a bit too fussy. And so in a way, just to kind of begin with You Are Flying, puts you more directly in the point of view of the thing that I'm trying to do, as opposed to this alienating thing. A thing I can remember is between that draft and this draft, I did a lot more research into what the countryside that I was evoking actually looked like. And so this whole section of the book is inspired by William Morris's Strawberry Thief, which is a famous textile. And, William Morris lived in Oxford and Oxfordshire. And so I had done quite a bit of research into what those hills would have looked like and what this land would have looked like and who would have been on them at that time. And so that was a thing. So it actually gets quite a bit more specific. You don't just have a man whistling a tune. He's now, humming the second movement of Beethoven's Emperor Concerto. So I think, you're looking for things that are both more specific in that sense, to kind of go to a place that has, things that the more specific they are, the more they can kind of evoke a feeling. When she zoomed out to the larger map, she found the location of Breaker of Horses was unmarked, and it took much unscientific backtracking and circling along anfractuous roads to find the place again.
That word anfractuous, if I'm being honest, I was reading that. I went to Merriam-Webster.com, cheap plug, and looked it up.
Yes. Well, I know in the previous draft it wasn't anfractuous. I think I probably had a simpler word like twisty or something like that. I find that I look up not just words I don't know, but I spend a lot of time looking up words I think I do know. I'm a person who doesn't just, again, look up like big words. I will look up words that I've used a million times because I'll want to see, well, what is the fourth definition of, something, But in the case of anfractuous, the reason it's the right word for me versus a simpler word here is because of all the things it evokes. Anfractuous, the root of it is probably fracture or something like that. This is a place that the characters in the story have come because their relationship is deeply fractured, and so to be able to have a word that evokes beyond just what twisty would is worth it to me. Sam asked Sadie to go out onto the balcony so they could collogue. He was still in a cast and he couldn't get around very well. Otherwise, he would have preferred to go on a walk with her. But yes, the word collogue, which I don't know how to pronounce because I've never said it out loud. It's kind of exciting and a little scary to know that. But, the reason I chose that word as opposed to talk, is because it is the more interesting word, but because it also just evokes colleague, which is so much of what this story is actually about. So in that case, that's why I wanted that word there as opposed to a simpler word. So the first definition, I think, is something like intrigue or conspire. And the second definition is, I think, to talk privately. I liked it, again, because it evokes friendship and it evokes collaboration, which are the heart of this story. It was Marx who suggested the glass flowers. Sam had asked Marx for the most interesting place at Harvard. Marx had been a Harvard Yard tour guide, but even if he hadn't been, he was the kind of well-traveled cicerone who always knew the best parts of any city. So cicerone is the word that sticks out there. It's a word that my partner encountered while reading a biography of Mike Nichols. So I didn't know this word, but he will share with me because he knows I love them. Interesting words. I'm a collector of them. And so once he had told me this word, of course, I immediately looked it up, but it means it's a guide who conducts sightseers, and then I just realized as I heard the word that it encapsulated Marx. So sometimes you can kind of hear a new word and it can tell you something about a character. And I have that experience personally all the time. Like, I remember coming across the word like sayamaki, which I'm not sure if I'm saying that right either. But it means the tendency to fight an imaginary opponent, you know. And anyway, once I heard that word, I was like, oh, wow, that's me, you know.
I feel seen.
It's brutal combat in my head. And so I think it's what language can do, you know, really, is it can kind of articulate something you don't quite know about a character if you're writing character, or about yourself even. I should just say that I'm a dictionary person.
Oh.
When I was a kid, I read this book where the girl in the book read a dictionary from beginning to end. And so I thought that would be a great idea. I did that myself.
Did you really?
And it was a Merriam-Webster dictionary, yes.
I mean, honestly.
But that said, I remember getting to the end of it and feeling, and it took a long time, like a year. I remember getting to the end of it and feeling really sad because I figured out that it was abridged, and I was like, oh no, I'll never learn every word in the English language. And then I started going down a rabbit hole at that time. I was like, Merriam-Webster adds words every year too, and so in fact, language is constantly a moving goalpost.
It really is.
So I'm very excited to be here. If I didn't say that before.